right, you are clear to start when you would like, Chair Schlagenhofer.
Okay, then I will call to order the Monday, June 14th, 2021 meeting of the Oregon City Planning Commission. Let's do a quick roll call to see if we've got a quorum in no particular order. Commissioner Staggs is absent. Commissioner Stoll, also absent. Commissioner West.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Here.
All right. Commissioner Schlagenhofer, I am here. And Commissioner Gage. She was here.
She was.
Where did she go? Laura, what happened to Commissioner Gage?
It looks like she must be having some computer problems and is no longer in the meeting. We could.
Do we wait for her or do we continue? We got 3.
We're going to have to wait since we can't open the public hearing. If there's anything you'd want us to say, I can say the community, if you want to do the last item first, I can do the communications while we wait.
Sure. Let's do the communications.
All right. Well, the first one is good to see new faces on the screen because we have an opening for the Planning Commission. So if you like what you see and you want to be a part of it and help give back to Oregon City, feel free to apply, or we encourage you to do so. If you go to orcity.org, there you can sign up now to apply for a variety of boards and committees, including Planning Commission, Historic Review Board, and there's another one in there too. We have a vacancy from Planning Commissioner Lisa Novak, who had to move out of the city unexpectedly. And so she's not here, but I wanted to thank Lisa because she was a great planning commissioner and she read her packets and showed up and did the work. And she did a really good job for Planning Commission. So we thank her for all of her service to the city. It is not an easy job. It requires lots of reading and lots of time for no pay. So we really appreciate and value the volunteers, and particularly Lisa did a really great job with that. So if anyone else would like to apply, please do so today. The other update is that Pete Walter, our senior planner, his last day will be June 29th. I believe he may have sent out an email to you, but he's served Oregon City for more than 15 years and done a really good job doing so. And so again, we thank him for all his good service and his deep knowledge of the city and natural resources and a whole slew of other things. So we wish him well. And then last is that the City Commission passed our budget on June 2nd. And that had with it those goals that the Planning Commission had worked on and provided letters of support or encouragement for. And some of the items related to planning include implementation of House Bill 2001 to work on those missing middle choices. We've been working on housing the last couple of years, and so we'll continue to look at places where our code doesn't exactly align with some of those House Bill requirements. So ways to encourage missing middle housing. And then we'll also work on housing beyond zoning tools. So what other things can the city do to encourage housing, affordable housing? And so we'll come up with a list of housing options, and some will include some funding and others will include no funding options. Are there things that we can do to better coordinate with economic development? Is there some streamlining that could happen? What at all could we do? Could we accept SDCs at a different point in the development process? So what are the options that we can do to advance particularly affordable housing within the city? And then the funded option will have with it, the first question is, should the city adopt a construction excise tax, which is a tax that will be put that could be put on development permits or building permits, and it would be dedicated towards affordable housing. If so, then there would be a funding stream to do a different set of tools. So be on the lookout for the city to be doing that. We're going to finish up House Bill 2001 between now and a year from now. And then directly after that, then we'll start with those housing options. And then in that second year of the biennium, so a year from now, we'll be starting up the climate action plan as well. So it's the climate action plan that's geared towards actions that the city is taking, not so much actions that residents can take, although we do encourage residents to take actions to help with climate change. So those are the big ones. There's other stuff the city commission is looking at, includes infrastructure, homelessness, creating relationships among the region, and a whole slew of things that you can find on the June 2nd agenda. And that's all I have. I stalled for only a few minutes though, and Patty is not here. Would you like to pause until she gets back, or?
Chair Schlagenhofer,
Yes, sir.
while we're still waiting, I've got a couple of comments and but first a question for Ms. Turway. Does it still look like the summit development proposal for the landfill will be on our agenda in 2 weeks?
It is likely that it is on your agenda for 2 weeks. There is a chance it could be continued when you get that agenda a week from now, but it looks like it's likely.
Okay, well, I'll throw out what I wanted to suggest because it sounds like it's going to be coming before us soon if it's not in 2 weeks. Two things. I know that the staff report always starts with a kind of a brief overview of what the agenda item is all about. But I think on this one, I think we need to realize that this is going to generate a lot of interest in the community, a lot of public comment. I think the last time, we all know what happened the last time a proposal came up on that piece of property. So what I'm asking for is if item number one on that, whenever that's on the agenda, that we get more of a master plan 101 briefing from staff or the city attorney or both on exactly what's involved in a master plan, what it means in the process, what could still change afterwards, but basically what it does and doesn't mean to the whole process. And I think that would be helpful not only for some of the planning commissioners who haven't gone through a master plan, but also for the community, because I think there's already some misinformation out there about exactly what's on the what's in the proposal and what it might mean and how it would progress. So that's number one. And the other thing, and maybe this is a discussion that Chair Schlagenhofer and Ms. Turway should have. I don't think, given that the complexity of that proposal, I don't think a 15-minute presentation from the applicant is going to do it. I think we could spend 15 minutes or more just talking on the traffic part of it. So, and maybe, I don't know if this is a question for Ms. Turway or Mr. Kabizman or maybe both. Do we go into this and extending the time period, letting the applicant know that they're going to have more than 15 minutes? And then would we also, as a matter of fairness or legally, need to extend public comment to more than 3 minutes? I think for a lot of reasons, we don't want to rush through this one. And I don't see how anybody could make a presentation on that proposal in 15 minutes. So that's what I have. Ms. Gage, I see Commissioner Gage is here now, so I'll stop talking if we want to move on to what we're supposed to be doing. But those are just my thoughts on that one. I want to make sure that we do it right, because it's, it's going to be pretty complicated with a lot of interest in the community.
Sure, and the Planning Commission as a whole has the authority to grant additional time to both the applicant or the public to comment. So staff can't do that. So you guys can have that discussion at the beginning of the next meeting, or how would you advise? Can they make that discussion now to provide additional time, Mr. Kvaisman?
Sorry, trying to get off mute. I believe they can, and they can make it public, before they get to it. One thing to keep in mind is that I would tend to agree that it's going to cause, there's going to be a significant amount of interest. It's a complex proposal, but the complexity sort of pushes you towards allowing more time, but the amount of interest might push you towards limiting time, because if you get a lot of people are interested, if you give everybody, a half hour, you're going to have meetings or multiple meetings that just go on for a very long time. And so, you want to be fair, but how to balance that is really within your, you've got a fair amount of discretion as long as it's fair. And maybe, to follow up on what Commissioner Mitchell had said with Commissioner Gage back, maybe we can tuck that in the back of our minds and have a discussion after the hearing so that we can get through the business we've got.
Yeah, or I would recommend just having the discussion at the beginning of the next hearing, so then you know what your level of interest is. And we'll let the applicant know that they can watch this and hear what you've had to say tonight.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Okay, I think those were some excellent suggestions from Commissioner Mitchell, and make sure I'm unmuted. Yes. All right. As far as the time, it sounds like it's something that we could extend while when we're there. And maybe we start with 15 minutes. If it feels like we need to give them more time, we can give them more time, but it doesn't sound like there's any hard limits that we're bound by. It sounds like we can keep going if we need to. If it looks like we have way too many people, we can limit it to 3 minutes. Sounds like we can be a little more dynamic about it than to make some hard decisions right now. So let's finish up our roll call. We were waiting on Commissioner Gage. Commissioner Gage, it looks like you're here.
I'm here.
All right.
I had
Okay,
technical
now we're
difficulties. I
rolling.
apologize.
It's okay. We filled in the time, and we're happy to see you now. All right.
Thank you.
I don't know, did any public comments come in on items not on the agenda? Okay, then we will go straight into our first item on the agenda. It is a public hearing, general land use application with a master plan, site plan, and a variance. Since it is a quasi-judicial hearing, we're going to go to the quasi-judicial script. One public hearing on land use applications is scheduled tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Planning Commission are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, I will ask the Planning Commissioners whether they have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I will also ask whether any of the Planning Commissioners have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any Planning Commissioner about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Planning Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the Planning Commission website. Public testimony will be called on in the order it was requested in advance of the meeting. If you have not emailed city staff at planning@oregoncity.org to request to speak and would like to testify, please raise your virtual or physical hand when I ask if there are others in the audience who would like to participate. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and city of residence. If you would like to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please state your mailing address or email address. Testimony and evidence should be directed towards the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in the oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Planning Commission makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond to, issue will not be deemed appealable to the City Commission or State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issues precludes any action for damages in circuit court. Okay. Now we will open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA-21-00013, Master Plan 21-00001, Site Plan 21-00043, and Variance 21-00003 for Eden West Apartments Master Plan, Variance and minor site plan and design review for additional unit at 920 John Adams Street. We will now ask each planning commissioner if they have had any ex parte contact, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, or have visited the site. If there was a site visit, the planning commissioner must declare what he or she perceived in no particular order. Commissioner West.
I have no conflict of interest over this hearing, and I have visited the site. I live fairly close by, and I did drive by around the block.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
I have no conflict of interest, no ex parte contacts. I did make a site visit today, and what I was primarily looking for was related to the issue with street trees and fitting street trees onto the site.
Okay. Commissioner Gage.
I have no conflict of interest, no ex parte contact. I did drive by the site, saw where an existing laundry room is, and I believe I know what site or which space was the new apartment. That's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And for myself, I have no ex parte contact, no conflicts of interest. I did not visit the site. Now, is there any, just a sec. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to question any of the commissioners on the statements they have made? Please raise your virtual hand if you have any questions. Okay. Seeing none, we will now commence with the planning staff report. Who has this one?
That's me. Thanks,
All
Chair.
right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Kelly Reed. It's been a while since I've been at Planning Commission, so good to see you. I have a few slides to share, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so this is a master plan minor site plan and variance for Eden West Apartments is 920 John Adams Street. This is in the McLaughlin neighborhood. And the site is developed with 2 buildings, 14 apartment units. This was built in 1961. 2-story with kind of a ground level area there that you can see. And that red door is the space in the building that we're going to be talking about. That's the area where the additional unit is located. So this is kind of a unique project. You might not ever see anything like this again. And I don't know that we've had anything like this. It's a bit of an odd duck. And I'll try to explain what's happening here and why we have this kind of complex process for just one additional unit in a multifamily building. So the properties in the R3.5 zone, that's residential, 3,500 square foot lot size, medium density residential. That zone allows single family detached along with duplexes, and just as of 2 years ago also allows for 3 and 4 plexes and multifamily units if they are part of an approved master plan. So the building was built in 1961. The city has building permit records for that. So we know that it was approved in 1961, but after that time period, the zoning changed of that site, and which made that apartment building a non-conforming use because the R35 zone did not, until 2019, allow for any multifamily development. So it became a non-conforming use. At some point in the over the life of the building, probably fairly recently, the storage area on the ground floor was converted to another unit. So a 15th unit was added. The new owner is now seeking to get permits for that because there were no permits approved at the time that happened. I don't think we really have documentation of when that happened exactly, but there were no permits. And so the new owner is correcting that. And in order to allow an expansion of this non-conforming use, normally we wouldn't allow that, but because the use of multifamily is permitted as part of an approved master plan, the applicant is seeking an approved master plan from the Planning Commission in order to get that 15th unit approved. So that's the reason for the master plan. There's no phasing. There's no request for adjustments that you would normally see in a master plan. It's simply the mechanism by which the applicant is allowing this expansion of this use. There's a variance request as well. One of the master plan criteria has to do with a mix of housing types, and I'll explain that. Other work that the applicant is doing includes some exterior building changes. Those changes would normally not be anything that would come to the Planning Commission. It's type 1 level review by planning staff typically, but because they are proposing it along with this work, it's kind of all just one package that's coming to you. Other improvements that are included here include bicycle parking, addition of some street trees and some landscaping. So here's your site plan. You can see there's a small parking lot on site, and the buildings are built almost right up to the street. And there's on-street parking provided. That's the image of the new railings that would be added to bring the building up to code. So some of the approval criteria that we're looking at here include parking. So adding a unit, we need to make sure that the building, the site provides the minimum required parking. It's 1 per unit. They have, as described in the staff report, they have 7 parking spaces on the property that are to remain, no changes proposed there. And the 2 frontages on John Adams and 10th Street both contain on-street parking. The applicant showed, I think, 9 spaces, 8 or 9 spaces there, and it looked like one of them was kind of close to the alleyway. And so we didn't count one of them as a parking space, but that still allowed them to remain at 14 spaces provided. So it is one per unit, sorry, 15 spaces. So they have 1 per unit. They also qualify for a 10% parking reduction because of the proximity to transit. There's a bus line on 9th Street. Parking minimums are met. There's an open space requirement of 100 square feet of open space per unit for residential master plan projects. There is no space on this property to add any common open space. It's fully developed. If it's got the park, if you converted any space to open space, you'd be losing a parking space on the site. So there's a bit of a constraint there. And so in order to meet that code, and by the way, the existing 14 units are kind of existing non-conforming, and we don't require those to provide open space, but for the new 15th unit, we do look at that provision and require that open space. So one of the standards in the master plan chapter allows offsite open space if it is within a quarter mile of the property. So the applicant was able to get creative here and utilize nearby Latourette Park. It might be kind of hard to see the numbers on that slide, but it's 0.11 miles from the site. So it is within a quarter mile. Quite a bit less than that, actually. And the applicant has proposed to contribute to the Latourette Park project. It was recently, or it's been recently updated by the Parks Department through a capital project. And so we were able to figure out if you take the cost of that project and then take 100 square feet of that, what's the equivalent cost? So that what the applicant is proposed to do is pay a fee in lieu of providing open space on site. That fee in lieu of would go to the Parks Department. That would be part of their budget for the Latourette Park project. Public facilities availability is another approval criteria. There's no issues there. Our Development Services Department indicated that there's capacity. Traffic impacts, we actually waived quite a few of the master plan submittal requirements because of the nature of this project. Requiring a full-blown traffic study was not, staff didn't think that was necessary. And so we waived that, and we essentially said that traffic impacts are negligible. And then, of course, consistency with the comprehensive plan. All master plans have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'm not going to go into all the different goals and policies. They are explained in your written staff report. I'll just touch on the efficient use of land goal, neighborhood livability, providing diverse housing opportunities, and reducing the isolation of income groups within communities. And the applicant's proposal meets these goals and policies by providing housing options, affordable housing options, lowercase a affordable, in an existing established neighborhood that has amenities and is walkable. So for the variance request, this paragraph is the code section that is being the variance is being requested for. So this code section requires for master plan residential projects that it includes a mix of residential uses such that no single residential use exceeds 75% of the total proposed units. So if you go to the end of the paragraph, it says the different uses include single family, detached, attached, duplex, 3, 4plex, and multifamily. So this project is multifamily. To meet this standard, the applicant would have to completely change the existing buildings and uses. And so just to keep it brief, that's the main reason for this variance request, and staff supports it. I think this section is not able to be met by this project, and we don't recommend that we require it to be met. The full findings for variances are in the staff report. If you have any questions about those, I have the criteria here up on the screen and we can go back to it. I want to address the public comments that came in. McLaughlin Neighbors Association comment was about the street trees in support of the project because the street trees were being included in the project voluntarily by the applicant. Those would not have been required necessarily by code for this because there's no new building square footage being added, but they've elected to provide street trees along 10th Street. And then there was an email today from a resident of the building bringing up the laundry room. I believe the language in the notice probably made it sound like that the laundry room was being completely converted into the new unit. And we got confirmation from the applicant today that that's not the case, that the laundry room will still be provided and is not going away. I think the size of it is being reduced. And so hopefully that satisfies the comment, the resident's comment that we received. So my recommendation is approval with a few conditions, and those include kind of just getting down to the details about the street trees and how those street trees will be installed using a right-of-way permit through the Development Services Department. Any nuisance vegetation, it's not clear if there is any, but if there is, our code requires that it be removed. A condition about how the bicycle rack is mounted and located, and then a requirement to pay that fee in lieu for the park before final building permit approval. So pretty simple conditions, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reed. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Reed? Okay, seeing nothing right now, I do have one thing I wanted to bring up, and I wanted it just to be clarified for the public comment we had earlier. I believe the laundry room size reduction has already occurred, and it's going to be staying the same size. Can somebody confirm that on the record?
Yes, Joseph Schaefer for the applicant. That is accurate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I am not seeing any questions for Ms. Reed. Okay, then we can hear from the applicant, and you have up to 15 minutes. And is that you?
Thank you. Yes. Again, Joseph Schaefer. I'm a land use planner at Jordan Ramus on behalf of the applicant. But before I start, I think I saw Commissioner Mitchell with his hand up.
Oh, I am sorry. I missed that.
I got it up there a little late. This is a question for Ms. Reed. One of the things that it mentioned in the staff report was that this was going to be a ground level apartment for accessibility. Is there any, kind of a two-part question, are any of the on-site parking spaces ADA spaces, and is that a requirement in our code if there is not one?
I believe building code handles ADA spaces. I'm not sure if any of them are, but when the applicant applies for building permits, then that would be reviewed and required as needed through that process. And Laura can correct me if I'm wrong about any of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we hand it back over to Mr. Schaefer? I'm not seeing any. Okay, we'll get back to Mr. Schaefer then. You can continue your 15 minutes.
Thank you. One more time, Joseph Schaefer, a land use planner at Jordan Ramus, here on behalf of the applicant. I'm first going to introduce the applicant team that's with us tonight, and then make a few remarks about this laundry room question. And then I'm going to pass it over to the ownership team to tell you a little bit about their perspective and work that's been happening at the property since they acquired it. And then we'll hear from the architect as well about this project. So with me tonight, we have the project architect, who's Todd Eisland. He's in the top right of my screen anyhow. We have the attorney and my boss, Matt Lowe from Jordan Ramus, our managing partner. And from the ownership and management, we have Brian Cassidy in the bottom right there, and Mike Zukin, kind of in the center with the nice skylight. We'll have to see how he got that in there somehow. So Kelly did a nice job of explaining the background for this, and so I won't repeat the things she said. I'm just going to make one comment about the history of this particular space. It's interesting, the city has the original plans, and all of the floor plans for the 14 apartments are intact. I mean, there haven't been walls moved around or anything of that nature. In this daylight basement area, there was a large room that was set aside for utilities and storage with apparent lockers and laundry. And at some point before the current ownership acquired the property a couple of years ago, the storage and utility and a little bit of laundry area was converted. The bathroom that was down there was sort of folded into the apartment, and a new demising wall was put in. And so the laundry area, instead of being, a couple washers and dryers in amongst a larger open space, became just a laundry room where there's 2 washers and 2 dryers, and that's it. That's the current condition of the daylight basement area, and we're not proposing to make any changes to that on the interior. On the exterior, there'll be new bike racks out front. There'll be street trees along 10th. And then, as Todd is going to explain to you in a little more detail, there's some upgrades on the decks and the railings. So I'll pause to ask if there's any questions. And seeing none, I'm going to pass it over to Brian Cassidy from the ownership and management team.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm Brian Cassidy from Dufur, Oregon. And I handle manage the renovation and upgrades on some different properties that we own. We're a multi-generational family company. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we started buying a few multifamily properties in the Southeast Portland area. We own, I think, 3 in Milwaukee, Clackamas County, and then Eden West is our first in Oregon City. We purchased that in 2019 at the beginning of the year, and there was a fair amount of deferred maintenance needed, so we put about $75,000 right away into the building, changing out old single pane aluminum frame windows for energy efficient double pane vinyl. Painted. We did a lot of upgrades in the units, and we've got 2 more projects that we're hoping to tackle relatively soon. One is this getting approval for the ground level unit that we're talking about tonight, and the second is the upgrading of the patios. As was mentioned by Kelly and Joseph, the property was built in the 60s, and the patios are poured concrete with a railing that is too short, and the spacing between the bars too wide to meet current code requirements. So we're gonna take out the existing patios and replace it with with patios and railing that meet the current code. And that will probably wrap up what we're hoping to do at the property. I'm open to take any questions, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Any questions for Mr. Cassidy? I see none. Did you have anybody else that was going to make any comments on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, our architect, Todd Iselin, is going to.
Oh, that's right. I am sorry, Todd.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd, if Mr. Iselin, if you're ready, we're ready for you.
Trying to unmute this. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, the upgrades we're doing are a lot of life safety upgrades. We're looking at putting in code compliant railings, redoing the decks that are deteriorated and becoming a hazard. We're also looking at increasing the fire separation between the units by building some privacy walls out on the deck. Right now, there is no fire separation on the patios, and that's a concern. So we're trying to stay as true to the original design, which had an expanded metal lath railing. So we're going back with something like that that will provide some privacy for the tenants, as well as some openness and light and air, and be true to the original design, which showed that. The unit downstairs is in good shape. It was previously done. We're just trying to get that legal and go through all the processes to make that legitimate at this point. If anyone has any questions, happy to discuss things further.
Okay, Commissioner West.
This isn't for Mr. Iselin, but I was wondering what the materials that you are going to use to replace the cement decks. Is it something you're putting on top of the cement deck? I wasn't familiar with how I read that.
No, it's actually going to be, it's a composite material that'll be lighter weight. It'll also allow us to not have the concrete out there, which has become an issue. It's concrete poured over a plywood deck, and the concrete's cracked, and so the plywood is starting to deteriorate.
Okay.
It's amazing it's held up as long as it has.
I didn't realize the cement was over a wood piece. So
Yep.
thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Ivan, do the decks stay the same size as
No
what's
change
there
to the
now?
footprint. We're keeping the same size exactly as it is.
Anything else, Commissioner Mitchell? Your hand's still up. Okay, all right. All right, any other questions for any of the members of the applicant's team? Okay, all right, thank you. We will see, do we have anybody from a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization that would wish to speak? And I am not seeing everybody, so I can't see head waves. Okay, here we go. Do we have anybody? Does not look like it. Okay. Any member of the public that would like to speak? Okay. All right. Well, if we don't have any more comments, the applicant is welcome to make a rebuttal, but if there's no more questions, then we don't need to do that. So would the applicant like to say anything else?
I would just want to ask Tanya if she would like to speak. I'm not sure if she was with the applicant or not.
I think it was all clarified for me on the paperwork that we got. It said that they would be converting the existing laundry room. So I was under the impression that that laundry room was going away.
Yeah, right. That is how it sounded because they said it was a conversion, but it's a conversion past tense. The conversion's been done. Legally, they need to call it a conversion, although it's already happened. So it sounds like the laundry room is going to stay the way that it looks currently.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay. If there's no further questions or comments, then we will close the public record. And do we have any questions for staff? Would anybody like to have more discussion, or do we have a motion? Commissioner Mitchell.
I will GLUA-21-0013, the master plan and the variance and the master plan, site plan or minor site plan and design review.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell. Do we have a second?
Point of clarification, if that includes conditions as well.
Yes, Ms. Laura.
Yes, with the conditions as laid out by staff. Sorry.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell with the conditions laid out by staff. Do we have a second?
Second.
And I believe that was a second by Commissioner Gage. And we can call roll.
I can do that. Commissioner, sorry, we're all in a different order now. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Gage.
Aye.
Sorry, Commissioner West.
Aye.
And Chair Schlagenhofer.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving to agenda item number 2, general business, approval of planning commission minutes for October 12th, 2020. Did everybody review them? Did you see any errors? Did it look good? Would someone like to make a motion? One at a time.
I reviewed them, but I wasn't there for that meeting, according to the minutes.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
assume I abstain from voting.
Mr.
What do I do?
Kabizman, what would the best thing for Commissioner Gage be to do?
So legally, you're still a member of the commission and can vote on it regardless of whether you actually attended or not.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I guess the same, so Commissioner West would be able to vote on it also. Do we need to have a,
Do you need a second?
do we need to have 4 people vote on it as a quorum? If we had 2 people, if we had the person abstain, would it be able to pass it, or would we have to wait for another meeting?
You would need any decision, including approval of minutes, has to be done by a quorum. So you would need 4 votes.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner West, do you feel comfortable voting on it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So did we have a motion? I may have missed it. I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we approve the planning commission minutes for October 12th, 2020.
Great. Okay, motion by Commissioner Gage, and then I believe Commissioner West, you had a second?
Correct.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Gage, second by Commissioner West. Can we call roll?
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Gage.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
And Chair Schlagenhofer.
Aye. All right, so we are backwards now. We already had our communications, but is there anything else
Yeah.
someone would like to bring up? Commissioner West, your hand is up.
Yes, so you, Ms. Turway had said that pending on how many people are at the hearing or the introduction to the summit development on June 24th, that we'd wait that night to see how long, comments should be. But I would think, I was going to make a suggestion that we not use the same protocol for the developer, because if you all of a sudden made a presentation for 15 minutes and got to have a half hour, I think that he would be better, they would be better prepared if they knew in advance of how much time. So I do think it's a big development, and it's one the community's interested in. It does deserve more time.
That is actually an excellent point to bring up. If they can count on having extra time, they may want extra time. They may have more information to bring up. So I guess we should give them something concrete that they can rely on. So
Yeah, they
yeah,
individual consultants talk.
right. Yeah, they could probably put together a 2-hour presentation if we gave them enough time, but I don't know if they need it or if they want it.
Or if it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, you got a good point. Commissioner Mitchell.
That really was the reason that I brought it up, so that they would have time to prepare, knowing that they had more time. But I also think we need to be very cautious that we are, whether it's a legal requirement or not, that we're perceived as being even-handed. And if we're going to allow the developer or the applicant more time to present their side, that we would give anyone who cares to take a counter viewpoint additional time also. And Mr. Kabeisman, I don't know whether there's a legal requirement to do that, but I certainly think we want to, for appearance, not just for appearance's sake, but that we want to be fair about it.
Yeah, and the one thing to always keep in mind is that anybody who has any arguments can submit an unlimited written materials. So there's always the opportunity to submit more materials, and if you have concerns. Historically and fairly, universally, cities provide more time for applicants to put forward their material. We have 15 minutes, 5 minutes for neighborhood groups, 3 minutes for public is, somewhat typical. It's not every city, but it's fairly typical. And that gives, the applicant a little more time because they have to carry the case. They're the ones who have to make the positive case and show that they have met all applicable criteria. Most of the time, opponents don't challenge everything. There's certain things that are problematic, and interested people, don't necessarily challenge, but say, here are the 3 or 4 things I'm interested in. And it's not everything the applicant is. So if we give the applicant 15 minutes, we've got to give everybody else 15 minutes, isn't legally required. I think you're right. We want to not just appear to be fair, but actually be fair. And that's a system that has been used, has been upheld, and generally has worked. If there is a significant concern that we're going to give the applicant 2 hours and we're only going to give anybody else, 30 seconds, you might have a problem there, but that's not, as far as I can tell, where we're headed. If the applicant requests a half hour, maybe the planning commission can think about, changing other interested parties to 5 minutes each, 10 minutes each, whatever seems fair to the planning commission. The key is to make sure everybody feels that they're heard and that they actually have the opportunity to submit all the comments that they want. And frankly, going back to what other jurisdictions do, there are a number of typically more rural and smaller jurisdictions that will allow unlimited comments for as long as people feel they need to speak. And sometimes those meetings go far longer than people intend. And you're all volunteers, and we want to. I think the city wants to respect your time and make sure that when people provide their testimony and comments to you, that it's focused and on point. And that's one thing time limits help to do.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell, did you have anything you wanted to respond to that with?
Well, I think what Mr. Kweisman just laid out doesn't sound too far away from reasonable. Maybe a 30-minute limit for the applicant and 5 minutes for public comment, and then 7, 8 for recognized neighborhood associations and such. But I'd be interested in knowing what the other commissioners have to say. But I think Mr. Kweisman's pretty close.
Okay.
I think he's probably been down this road once or twice before.
Yeah, Commissioner West.
Well, I think 30 minutes sounds reasonable for the developer. And then are we back to again seeing how many people are there or at the meeting to figure out how to adjust the comments that night, the length? And we can adjust both the neighborhood association and public. To lengthen them. What is it now, 5 and 3? The comments?
Yes.
Yeah, and as you rightfully pointed out, letting the applicant know how long they're going to have to present is a good thing to do in advance, and it's probably a good thing to do for other interested parties as well, to let them know in advance. Because if you think you have 5 minutes, there's too many people there, and the commission says no, we're going down to 3 minutes. That could be problematic. It's probably legal, but it certainly is not going to make people happy.
Well, I don't know. So what did you present, Commissioner Mitchell? 7 or 8 for a neighborhood and
5 for an individual.
I think that sounds good.
So take the applicant from 15 to 30, take the recognized neighborhood or other group from 5 to 8, and take private citizen comment from 3 to 5, and make sure that we publicize it that way so everybody knows they got a significant bump in their time.
Ms. Turway.
For example, tonight, staff will normally do the initial presentation and then the applicant speaks. So staff may also want to go above the 15 minutes, but I'm recognizing this is all adding up to a lot of time. So, we'll try and keep it reasonable, but with complex things, I just want to recognize that side of it as well. But for neighborhood associations and others, you might want to bump them up the same. They each get an extra 3 minutes or something like that. So it's a little more equitable.
So basically double everybody's normal time. 15 to 30 for the applicant, 3 to 6 for an individual, 5 to 10 for a group. That's pretty even-handed in my mind. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I think we need to face the fact. We're not getting through this puppy in one night. I don't think it's going to be possible. I may be worrying about it way too much. I just was here the last time.
Okay, well, here's my thoughts on it. I got no problem doing some late nights. I have no problem spending some extra time listening to people and their concerns. I do think that the applicant can probably touch on a lot of, just touch on the tips of a lot of items in 15 minutes, much more detail in 30 minutes, but then we can also go back and ask them for more information. So 15 minutes isn't just a solid 15 minutes. It can drag on if we have a lot of questions for them and they need to clarify some things. We've had some meetings past where we were talking to an applicant for 45 minutes. So the 15 minutes is just their presentation, and then it can kind of grow from there too. So I don't know what people feel about that. That'd be one way to maybe just say, let's start with 15 but we've never really cut anybody off, when we had questions for them, and then we asked them for, more responses in return. So, but I don't mind it either way. We can give them more time from the beginning, or we could kind of go back to our basic protocol and then allow them to speak more as we ask them for more information. So it's up to the commission. Those are my thoughts. Let's go back to Commissioner Mitchell, and then after that, Commissioner West. I see both your hands up.
My hand was up because I always forget to take it down.
Okay.
I said what I wanted.
Okay, Commissioner West.
Well, I like that. This is my opinion. I'm one of 4 here, but
That's what we want.
Of giving them the 30 minutes, because that way the public that's there will hear the same thing we're hearing, whereas we read a planning packet and they don't. Well, they might, and they could. It's all there. We're transparent. It's all online. But I think that it would give more information to the public too. And that could, it would level the playing field. Just my 2 cents.
I appreciate your 2 cents. It sounds like everybody's happy with the extended times for both the applicant, the neighborhood associations, and the public comments. So is there anything that we need to do as a commission to finalize that before we say goodbye, or do we need to make a motion? Mr. Kabaizaman, what do you
I think
think?
you provided direction. This isn't necessarily
Okay.
Something you necessarily need a motion for. Do you
All right.
feel comfortable, Laura, in what you heard, or whoever's handling?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that this is unusual, and we have not put our staff report out there, and I just want to make sure that it's clear, and I'm sure it will be, that we will review each application individually on the merits of that application against the code. We just anticipate this one being complex because prior similar, I don't even know if similar, but this on the same property were complex, and we anticipated a lot of involvement with a lot of variety of issues. So a little bit different in normal. Generally, we try and stick to the same process always. A little bit different in this case. We don't intend to make this a thing for applications, just this one is so significantly different.
Okay. Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said, Mr. We do need to make it clear that we're doing this on just because of what we think is the exceptional nature of this one. And I'm just curious, how can we, it's obviously we can get to the applicant and tell them they have 30 minutes, but is there a way when we put out the agenda for the meeting that we can make it clear that additional time will be provided due to the complexity and the interest in this case?
We can do that. We can put it in the commission report. That's a great idea.
Like that.
Okay. All right. I think we've gotten, well, I see nothing else. Anything else? Commissioner Mitchell, your hand is still up. Did you have something else?
I never remember to go back and drop it. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Okay, I want to make sure
you have to click on raise hand to lower your hand, which is
no. Yeah.
This must be a Microsoft program. That's the way they think.
It very well could be. All right. If that is it, then we are adjourned.